What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Storm of the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys was Tad the Side. And Tad, it's a good football weekend for me. Maybe not
great
fantasy-wise for me. It's still like very mixed bag. I think it's just like with both of us playing in so many leagues, it's always going to be a mixed bag. I don't think I've ever gotten a clean sweep with all 7 leagues that I'm in here. But you know what? As far as real football goes, the Niners came back and had a very impressive win against the Jacksonville Jaguars off the bye week. The day before, on Saturday, San Jose State pulled off the upset against Fresno State. So they're very much
good
still.
Job. Is that a rivalry?
That is a rivalry. Yeah, they
okay,
played for the V trophy. I can't remember what the V stands for, but it's like, yeah, it's a long time rivalry that we have.
TCU and SMU plays for an iron skillet, so I can't really talk that much trash.
I think it's the Valley Trophy. The Valley Trophy, that's what it was. Because
okay, all right.
Other states, so it's like the Valley or whatever. Nice so the trophy is new. The rivalry is long term. But yeah, Fresno State was 8-1 heading into that game. San Jose State was 4-5. So it was a massive upset by San Jose State, and they controlled that game throughout. So I was very happy on Saturday. Obviously, the Niners were able to double up my happiness with a very impressive win on Sunday as well. Your Colts, they got a very,
great.
Good win. I wouldn't say it's like a fantastic win, but
a win's a win.
When you get the only touchdown of the game, I'll consider it a good win.
There we go.
No, it was a touchdown. So
it was so funny because I was looking at the slate of games. So I was in Fort Worth for the TCU game. Ooh, that was not a good game. Left in the third quarter. I'll fully admit that.
I missed you during halftime. I was like, you guys went to this game.
It was a great experience outside of the game. But point being is, I did not really look at the NFL slate. So Sunday morning, I went to brunch with a bunch of friends who I was with at the game. And I was looking at the slate. I'm like, God, this slate is terrible. And I was like, okay, no, we have one good game. I was like, it's 49ers Jags. And this is why the NFL always wins. Is the best game of the weekend. Ended up being a total dud. But everything else ended up being insane. There was, I don't know if you watched it, but there was a drive between the Browns and the Ravens that technically lasted like a minute. But with all the penalties and everything, it legitimately lasted about 15 minutes to go about like 10 yards. I love football. It is crazy.
Yeah, so that was a great game. You got the Browns with a little bit of the upset win there, pulling out that last second field goal. Dustin Hopkins, I did start him. He had a very fantastic day in that game for sure. We got the great game between Atlanta and Arizona. Kyler Murray looked pretty strong in his first game of the 2023 season. They were able to get a last second field goal in that game as well. Giants and Cowboys, that was a dud as well, which we expected though.
You know it's a bad game when even Red Zone's like, yeah, that game's going on, but let's show you some stats instead. It's just like,
I think maybe game of the week though was Detroit Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Chargers at Detroit. That was a fantastic back and forth game. Unfortunately for LAFB Network, the Chargers did not come away with the victory. The Lions are now up again there, so they were able to pull out the last second victory there. But yeah, we had some very underrated games. I know the schedule didn't look all that appealing, but yeah, very underrated games, especially how it all played out there. But yeah, Tad, we definitely had to discuss some injuries that happened over the weekend, and of course we need to get into our waiver wire picks here in week 11. But before we get into all that, Tad, we have to give a shout out to our great sponsors at Underdog Fantasy. I mean, they're just a fantastic way to sort of get into the betting action, get into the fantasy action. It's not just, betting, but you can also get into fantasy football as well. They have a great platform for best ball. If you're not familiar with best ball, it's pretty much you draft your entire roster, you set it, and you forget it. You don't have to worry about making waiver wire additions. You don't have to worry about trades. You don't have to worry about, start sits. It pretty much takes your roster, and whoever did the best in that week, they will give you those points. And so it just automatically does it all for you every single week. So it's a good sort of like, for those of you who don't want to be super active with your fantasy football league, this is a great option. You just draft your roster and you're all done. You just sort of wait to see exactly how it all pans out there. But I think the more exciting stuff there is that you definitely need to get into the excitement that is the pick'em action, Tad, where it's like you pick any number of 2 to 5 different player props about, anything from Brock Purdy, over or under 1.5 passing touchdowns, CD Lamb over under 89.5 receiving yards. It's just lots of random props for all the NFL slate of action, not just the NFL, but you can also cross with different sports as well. They got the MLB, they got the NBA, NHL, college football, college basketball is just started right now, so you can get into that action as well. So you just pick 2 to 5 different props that you like. If you hit on all 5, you get yourself a pretty nice hefty payday. But Tad, the great folks at Underdog Fantasy want you to get into the action because they're giving you a great promo offer. All you got to do is use our promo code DESAI, DESAI, and you could double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500. Underdog will match that, so you can really get into a lot of betting action for sure. So, Tad, hypothetically, if you were to put in $500, Underdog will match that. You could bet with up to $1,000 then from that point with that initial deposit. Once again, just use that promo code DESAI, DESAI, and you can get in on the action. I mean, just Underdog, Tad. I mean, we use it every single weekend. I can't speak for you. I use it every weekend.
I do as well. I'm not doing too hot, but I do as well.
But it's a lot of fun. It's very simple. The app and the website are both very intuitive, very easy to use, very friendly for those don't like to technical things. Literally just pick a few things and you're good to go sort of thing. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Get in on the action, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy for sure.
And absolutely, like you said, if you're like me and your football betting is going a little not so great this season, there are plenty of other things going on. Dude, if Marquise Brown had caught that touchdown, man. But bottom line is, like you said, college basketball just started up. As you can tell, the NBA season for our podcast listeners, I'm sticking up. I'm wearing my Miami Heat shirt.
Miami Heat whiteout shirt. Yep.
Jesus. Yeah. But
I was trying to go for the whiteout, but I was too preemptive. So that's why I turned into height instead of heat.
So NBA season is starting to hit full swing. There's this, I guess, in-season tournament that might have a point to it, but it doesn't matter because even there is no point to it. You can
still win. Tad, quick tangent. Those courts that they have for the NBA in-season, absolutely horrendous. Like they're Charles Barkley terrible. Like, why did they come up with this idea? It is absolutely horrendous.
This ain't soccer. Get out of here. But it doesn't matter what's happening with the in-season tournament because the bottom line is you can still make money off it. So even if football is not your sport, they have plenty of others to choose from. They are a great sponsor. I still can't believe that deal. I still feel like it's like somehow a scam.
Fantastic.
It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. I put in $50 of my own money. I'm like, really? $50 back? Are you sure? Are you sure? I actually reached out to customer service. I'm like, I think there was a mistake. And they're like, no, you're good. It's like, okay. All right. So, guys, be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy because they are great sponsors. They are a great supporter of the show, and you guys are great supporters of us. So, supporter meets supporter, and everybody benefits. So, be sure to check them out using the promo code DESAI, DESAI. And you know what? I'll even say like my mom did. A little shout out to my mom. It's D as in David, E, S as in Sam, AI. Every restaurant reservation we made. I never understood. I never understood that. Like weird. The D makes sense because like D and T, but the S, the S never made sense to me. I'm like, who messes up S?
Well, I figured at that point you're already sort of committed, so you might as well just do every letter. But then your mom sort of stops halfway. So that's weird.
She skips. It's D as in David.
That's so weird.
E, S as in Sam. AI.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like if I'm doing one, I'll just do all of them. I'm not going to do like half and sort of mix. And that, yeah, that's weird.
And the worst part is sometimes I'll catch myself doing that. It's like, what's the last name? D as in David. I'm like, damn it.
Of course. Yeah. No, of course. Standard. But Tad, so yeah, we definitely love our great sponsors at Underdog Fantasies and get in on the action. But yeah, definitely we want to update those people who make some of those bets on Underdog Fantasies platform this coming weekend for week 11 because we may have some injuries that may affect some of those bets for sure. So let's start here with the, we were talking about the Lions and the Chargers game. There was an injury in that game. I don't think there's going to be much to result from this because, I mean, just unfortunately, Tad, they're not involving him at all, especially when we thought some of the injuries would lead to him getting more involved. I had him picked as one of our picks during our waiver wire episode. Might have been during one of our starts at episodes too. I might have double upped as well a couple weeks ago, but just, yeah, I really just don't understand why they're not involving him. And that is Gerald Everett, the tight end with the Los Angeles Chargers. He exited the game against the Detroit Lions in the second half with an apparent back injury. Did not return to the game. He was questionable to return returned, and they eventually ruled him out. And of course, he's going to be questionable heading into week 11 now. Severity injury, we still don't know. They're still doing some more tests to see what exactly is the extent of the injury, how severe it is, whether he's going to miss week 11. Maybe he'll miss more. Maybe he's going to miss no time at all. But Tad, I already sort of brought it up. It doesn't matter because it's just for some reason they're not leveraging him in the passing game. Like with this, we talked about this before, with Mike Williams being out for the entire season with his injury, with Joshua Palmer being put on the IR a couple of weeks ago. You thought that all these other guys were going to have to step up, and that's how they're going to have to salvage the passing game, because Keenan Allen can't do it alone. He is. Don't get me wrong. He is absolutely doing it on his own, but it couldn't hurt to give him some more support outside of Austin Eckler out of the backfield. And it's just, I don't know what's happening there. But yeah, Gerald Everett is sort of non-existent in this game. It's pretty much just Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. It's really hard to trust any of the Chargers tight ends. I mean, maybe you could trust Donald Parham. He's the only one who's been scoring touchdowns. He's the only one who's scoring touchdowns, because he's actually second on the team in touchdowns scored through the passing game behind Keenan Allen. He has 4. Keenan Allen has 6. So that's the only thing I'd say there. But yeah, they are very, very much touchdown dependent, and it's just too hard to trust.
It doesn't really surprise me because Brandon Staley comes from the Sean McVay tree, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope,
and what we've been saying for the past, 5 years with this Rams offense is this is the year Higbee blows up. This is the year. Look at this. Gerald Everett blows up. Like, we've been saying this forever.
Gerald Everett's also a former Rams tight end.
That's what I mean. We were saying this all the way back when Gerald Everett was with the Rams.
That's true.
For whatever reason, this McVay type offense just does not utilize the tight end. And I think we got kind of tricked, because Staley utilized him a little bit more than McVay did at first. But now that I think Staley knows his job is on the line, he's kind of fallen back to what he knows. And clearly it's working, because the Chargers are on a pretty good streak right now, despite this weekend. So I think
that's crazy, Tad. I heard the stat. Sorry to interrupt you, but I heard the stat during that game. That was the 100th game in the past decade for the Chargers that was a 1-loss loss.
Fuck. Well, I mean, that's like a staple of my
one score loss. That's
no, I 100% believe that, because that was a staple of my childhood growing up. Is Phillip Rivers down by 4 with no timeouts with 80 yards to go. Like, every weekend, I was like, how does he keep on doing this?
The same thing gets translated over, unfortunately, to Brandon Staley's regime here with the Chargers too. Like, just they haven't overcome that giant monkey on their back, and just like when they're in a 1-score game, for some reason they're coming up on the wrong end of it. So also, I heard that and I was just like, geez, that's insane.
Listeners and viewers, I promise we will get back to this, but while we're sharing crazy stats, you want to hear another random crazy stat?
Hit me. I love crazy stats.
The Patriots lost their 33rd game this weekend against the Colts since Tom Brady left. Jeez. Their entire tenure under Tom Brady.
Jeez.
Hold on. It gets better. Their entire tenure under Tom Brady as a starter, they lost 35.
Yeah, that's up there. That's pretty damn insane for sure. Like, just crazy. Exactly. Ted, I think we'll have to revisit that on the podcast, but just like, does this tarnish Bill Belichick's legacy? Like, 100%. I mean, it is 100%. Absolutely crazy how much of a turn it has taken since Brady left the Patriots and Bill Belichick. That's what I was trying to say there. It's just like, yeah. That stat, it's shocking, but it also doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's like shocking, but not shocking at the same time. Like, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad. It's like when you're the person you're dating is like, so I have some credit card debt. And you're like, okay. And they go, it's $10,000. And you're like, oh my God.
Exactly. So, wow. Yeah. Insane.
Yeah, so anyway, going back to the Chargers, it doesn't really shock me that much that Gerald Everett's not being used, considering the tree that Staley comes from. But I'm right there with this. This sounds ruthless, but again, that's fantasy football for you. It's almost a good thing, because that's always a streamer. You're like, this is the week. And like, that temptation is just gone now. It's just gone. Just pull it out. And you're just like, all right, fine. He's hurt. He's not going to blow up. Fine. He's gone. I'm done trying it. So, look, like, obviously, I hope Gerald Everett gets better. But, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, maybe Quentin Johnston. And, yes, I'm incredibly biased when I say that. Maybe this is finally – I feel like Kellen Moore is finally just like, fuck, we have nobody else to go to. And that's why QJ finally got his first career touchdown. And, by the way, thank you for texting me as if I did not already see that. As if my phone
maybe you weren't. You were out. I don't know. So I thought maybe you just didn't see it. I have no idea.
It was just funny because I spent the past like 5 minutes celebrating Quentin Johnston's touchdown. And I got a text from Murr being like, hey, QJ just got his first touchdown. And I'm like, yes, thank you. I'm quite aware. But yeah, we're going to talk about the other option, in a little bit. But I think that there are just much better options that are still interesting pickups. But Gerald Everett, even if healthy, is not one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And Tad, just to close off this topic here, I really thought that Everett might get involved this year specifically because I know you sort of talked about Sean McVay not using the tight ends, but you look last year where Cooper Kupp was out pretty much the entire year. Higbee got a lot of targets, and he was actually in the top 10 as a fantasy tight end for a lot of the year. I think he finished in the top 10, if I remember correctly,
too.
He
finished around 9.
It's very possible. So it's like, I thought maybe this is the case again, where it's just like, okay, Mike Williams is out. Now Josh Palmer is out. And all these guys are sort of, going down with injuries. And so it's like other people then have to step up. And Gerald Everett has proven that he could be successful as a tight end in this league. Looking back to his first year with the Chargers, that's when we were very much, Tad, me and you, we're very much on the Gerald Everett bandwagon. We kept talking about the guy like pretty much every podcast episode. I remember that. And so it's so surprising that it just didn't translate going on to a couple seasons now, especially, like I said, with just the subtractions there. You thought this was going to be an addition by the subtractions there, but just, fortunately hasn't been the case. So, I like it, where it's like now you just don't have to worry. It's like, nope, this is not, don't get cute. This is not a streaming option you want to take. It's just like, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. But, let's get to the next injury here, Tad. Let's go to the running back position here. This is the Minnesota Vikings, and this is Alexander Mattison. He unfortunately suffered a big hit in this game against the New Orleans Saints in the third quarter, was able to walk off the field on his own power.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt. Is there a bounty gate out for Vikings? What is with Vikings getting absolutely lit up this season?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, what was his name? Greg Williams? It's like he's like in the NFL front offices now, but he's just doing the whole bounty thing, but with everybody.
Yeah, I have no idea if that's the case, but Madison was able to walk off the field on his own power. He went straight to the medical tent, though, and eventually he was ruled out with a concussion afterwards. He will now enter the concussion protocol, obviously, and we'll see whether he can be cleared to play here in Week 11 when they play the Denver Broncos. A pretty good matchup for them if he's able to go. But instead, if he's not able to suit up, we did see Ty Chandler, the rookie out of...
I don't know.
No, you don't know? Okay, this is the most recent draft, so I thought maybe you might have known. But the rookie out of North Carolina, Ty Chandler, in the 5th round. So he stepped up.
This is what's really bad is he's my pick for pickup at running back this week.
Oh, of course. Fantastic.
Of course he is.
So he stepped up into the role when Madison went out. He was able to total 15 carries for 45 yards. He scored a touchdown. He played a total of 32 snaps in that game as well. But he looks like he could be a serviceable option in that offense if Madison can't go. If Madison can go, then I think we'll still see a little bit of that split share between Madison and Ty Chandler. But that's just something you want to monitor to see what's the status with Alexander Mattison and the concussion protocol, whether he's going to be able to play or whether you can pick up Ty Chandler off the waiver wire and make him a serviceable streaming option here. So, Tad, while we're on the topic, why don't you bring up your pick here, Ty Chandler, and why he's a good pick off the waiver wire?
So first things first, over under, your favorite game.
Yeah.
How many ESPN rosters have Ty Chandler on it? Is it over or under 3%?
3%. I'm thinking with the Akers injury, I'm leaning towards the over. So I'm going to say over.
I don't know why I do this to you. It's so mean. It's a literal no-win situation. He is sitting at a comfy 2.7% rostered right now.
2.7%.
2.7%. And but I'll tell you what I like a lot about him. And yes, I know it's just like we're going for the most obvious waiver pickup of the week right now. But you know what? Sometimes the most obvious one is the best one, and there's a reason for it. Is because here's the interesting fact. So Madison went down in the third quarter. I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yep.
But before that, kind of like what you briefly mentioned, it wasn't just split carries. Chandler actually had more carries than Madison did. Granted, it was by 1, so he had 9, Madison had 8. But it was very clear that that split carry approach is what they were going to be going forward with anyways. And so yes, he benefited from Madison's injury, but he scored his only touchdown of the game before Madison was out. So it was funny because, like I said, I went to brunch with some friends. One of my buddies was like, "I'm going to the airport in an hour. Do you mind if I post up in your apartment for a bit?" And we were sitting watching football, and Chandler scored his touchdown. What's the first thing I did? Look to see if he was available. in my league because I was like, that just his usage. I was like, I think they might be trying something, and it makes sense because Madison is not exactly. I'm getting my sons mixed up. Addison's been killing it. If Jordan Addison is available, you go get that man right now. But
I highly doubt it.
I would guess like 99.9 for roster. But anyway, Madison, not Addison. Madison hasn't exactly. He's on the opposite end of the spectrum. He hasn't exactly been killing it. The past couple weeks. Over the past 5 weeks, I almost did over under here, but I felt like it was going to be too easy. Over the past 5 weeks, he's only scored over 10 points once. So fantasy-wise and on the field-wise, he hasn't been doing terribly, but at the same time, he also hasn't been producing as the number one back the Vikings clearly were hoping he was going to be, especially in the wake, as you mentioned, of the Cam Akers injury of like, okay, now is your time to step up. Now is your time to solidify this job. He didn't get it done. So I think that they kind of turned towards Ty Chandler then. And we're like, all right, Rook, let's see if you got it. And up until, the end of the game, he really did prove I got it. So I think that this is a really, really like one of those rare cases where it's a valuable late season get that is a potential, explosion opportunity in terms of production. Meaning that it would not shock me if Ty Chandler took over as the top running back in Minnesota right now, because Cam Akers is out for the foreseeable future. Madison, we don't even know if he's playing next weekend. And so I think that Ty Chandler is one of those guys that and I don't even think he's going to be number one for a guy I'm going to bring up later. I think he may be the number one pickup. So even if you're like 3, 4, or 5, you may still have a solid shot to get him. So I really, really like Ty Chandler as my top waiver pickup of this week, not just a running back, but just overall. So I really like him. And also I really hate him because every time I say Ty Chandler, I think of the old NBA center. I just imagine him playing running back, which is a hilarious thought.
That would be Tyson Chandler. Yes.
Same thing. Ty Chandler, Tyson Chandler, same thing.
It's close enough.
Come on. Tell me you don't want to see him take at least one NFL carry. That would be amazing.
That'd be interesting for sure.
That dude was jacked.
But yeah, I think it's a very solid pickup. I think it's just obviously you look at what Minnesota is doing. It just unfortunately, once they released Dalvin Cook, you thought that they'd lead more on that one back approach with Alexander Mattison and he'd sort of take over, but it doesn't look like the case. He just hasn't looked as effective. Then they're definitely lead on Cam Akers when he was there for the short time that he was. Fortunately, went out with the injury. And then, now they're leading on the rookie Ty Chandler to sort of sprinkle in to sort of get that dual threat ability with both of those running backs, the two-headed monster in the backfield. And so, I think he definitely holds value, even if Alexander Mattison is good to go, because clearly, like you said, Tad, up until that injury, it seemed like it was very much a split duties between both Chandler and Mattison. So they definitely both hold value. And it's looking like Chandler has a little bit more effectiveness in this offense compared to Mattison. So I think, if he's available and you can stack him off, clearly he's available because you said he's only rostered 2.7% of ESPN league. So if you are able to get him as your top waiver wire priority, it's a very solid addition, right? As we're getting close to the fantasy playoffs.
Well, and here's the reason why I trust him so much too, is because whoever the team, in most cases, I'm not saying this is a universal rule, but in most cases, whoever the team trusts the most at the goal line is who they, trust the most overall. Is like who gets the ball, they'll get it in the end zone. And like I said, Chandler was the only running back for the Vikings to score this past weekend. So that was a big, not red flag. That was a big green light to me of like rearrayed, like, kind of those old tops. What were those things called where you just like let them rip? Battle tops or something?
Tops. I don't know, man.
No, it wasn't just called tops. Come on.
I don't know.
Rip them tops? I don't know. I'll look it up. But there were these old tops when I was a kid where you just like, you would put in like a little plastic piece and you just rip it. And that's where let them rip came from. It's not, but that's where my version of let them rip came from.
Yeah.
And so, but it's kind of like that. It's like, I feel like they're like, screw it. We got this rookie. Our season's probably done anyway. Let's let it rip. And he proved it. So let's see how it does go moving forward, how he does moving forward. And let's not forget the Broncos, the Vikings' next 2 games. We'll explain it. The Vikings' next 2 games before their bye week are against the Bears and the Broncos. Not 2 very intimidating defenses. So there's a very good chance that he puts up some pretty solid games too. I say next weekend, start him as a, kind of hesitant flex play. And if he shows up again, all of a sudden he's in RB2 territory for me.
Yeah. So, yeah, go grab Ty Chandler. I think that's a solid addition. So, got two more injuries that we need to get here, Tad. We got two quarterbacks, actually, that we need to speak about. So, first one that we're going to bring up is Derek Carr, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. In that same game against the Minnesota Vikings, he took a big shot from Danielle Hunter in that game, right on his shoulder in the third quarter of the game. He was taken back to the locker room, and he was quickly ruled out of that game. They evaluated him not only for the injured shoulder, obviously, but also for a concussion because he took that big of a hit. Conveniently, though, Tad, New Orleans Saints are on a bye week this week. So of the 4 teams on a bye week, the Saints are on a bye week. Your Colts are on a bye week, having just played Germany, as well as the Patriots, who were their opponents in that game. So they're also on a bye week. And the Atlanta Falcons are also on a bye week this week. So we got 4 teams on a bye. But like I said, this I think may benefit the Saints because the Saints are going to be on a bye week here in week 11. And hopefully he should be good to go by week 12 when they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're looking at the injury. It's not looking as severe. We're talking about the shoulder here, not about the concussion, but it's looking like it's not as severe as they may thought it was. It's just looking like a sort of aggravation of that sprain that he had back in week 3. Now, that sort of can be good news or it could be sort of bad news. They sort of re-injured that throwing arm. He didn't miss any time when he had that injury back in week 3. He missed the rest of that game, and then he came back the next week and he was totally fine. But if you're re-injuring that throwing hand, or your throwing shoulder, I should say specifically, then that sort of worries me. And so in his place, we did see Jameis Winston come into the game. He looked good at times. He also looked like his usual,
So I was about to say, he played like Jameis Winston. He looked good at times. He threw some really dumb passes at times. It was just, God, it was so funny because, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
It's so funny because, yeah, he stepped up. And honestly, I was saying, not that it's Derek Carr's fault with what's going on with this offense, but I don't know about you. I was kind of getting that vibe from New Orleans of like, I don't know, like this may not be the solution and kind of stuff like that, especially with how Taysom Hill does when he's at quarterback. Sure. And I was like, oh man, if Jameis Winston kills it here, this could lead to a controversy. And then it was funny because he had that, touchdown pass to A.T. Perry, who everyone was losing their minds. And then of course he had that like chef's kiss pass to Chris Olave. And I was like, oh my God, Jameis Winston might play himself into the starting role. And then Jameis Winston's.
Of course.
And it was just like, why are you forcing that throw? And it was just so funny because, yeah, that's all the commentary I've heard this week of like, well, he was good at times, he was bad at times. I'm like, this is exactly what happened when he was in Tampa Bay with the 30-30. He is still the only player as of now in NFL history to do that. And there's a reason for that because I've never seen a player like him. He is a specimen. Man, I want to study him for the rest of my life.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what this offense will look like with Jameis Winston under center if he does have to play in 2 weeks when they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, his former team. So we'll see about that. But like I said, I think they get the benefit there where they have the bye week. So Derek Carr has a little bit more rest time to sort of recover. Like I said, hopefully that shoulder injury is not going to be as severe the way the Saints are hoping. And if he's in the concussion protocol, should be able to clear it pretty quickly unless it's pretty severe. But it doesn't look like that should be the case. But definitely want to bring it up in case it ends up being a little bit more of a hindrance for him to play in week 12, but it's looking like he should be okay here with that bye week here at week 11. So last injury that we need to close with here, we're sort of talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but their quarterback had a little bit of an issue. Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He banged his thumb.
I missed this one. I was surprised when this popped up on the list.
Because it's not that serious, but I did want to bring it up still. He did bang his thumb in the fourth quarter. There are a lot of people say that he banged it on a helmet. We don't have exactly the exact video proof of when the injury happened, but sometime I think they're saying in the end of the game, he was able to finish the entire game. He didn't miss any snaps at all. They are playing this weekend against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a situation to just sort of monitor, like whether that's going to hinder him, whether he's going to have to miss the game. It's looking like he's saying he's all right. The team doctors and the head coach and the coaching staff are saying that it should be all right too. But I think this is a big thing you want to be careful of is that this was the thumb on his throwing hand. So if this is going to cause him issues throughout the week of practice where he can't handle snaps, he can't grip the ball.
I was just about to say the grip there is huge.
Exactly. So it's like if it was on the non-throwing hand, I think he could get by because this happened to Justin Herbert where he had the split on his middle finger on his non-throwing hand. He's obviously still able to play the game and he was doing so completely fine. But yeah, this with the thumb on his throwing hand, this could cause him issues throughout the week of practice and it could hinder him and it may cause him some pain and discomfort as the game goes along as they play this weekend. But if you say it's not serious, then I think it should be good to go. He should be all straight for this week 11 game against the San Francisco 49ers. But in case it does cause him a hindrance, You got your boy Kyle Trask will be next man up there to play.
Is it time? Is it Kyle Trask time?
Against a very vaunted 49ers defense that I would not be.
Was he ever here? Can he be back if he was never here?
No, he was never here.
He's here.
But yeah, so that's just, water monitor situation there. It's looking like Mayfield should be fine to play, but with it, like I said, on the throwing hand, could cause some issues this week.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. How many people are really playing? If you're playing Baker Mayfield against the 49ers, you're pretty desperate. Although it is interesting to note, even with, the Jaguars' obvious offensive struggles, a lot of them, Calvin Ridley, out of this conversation, but a lot of them still put up pretty respectable numbers given the blowout. I think Trevor Lawrence, depending on the format you're in, put up about 16 points, which again, for being blown out by 37 points, not terrible. And then Christian Kirk, I can say as somebody who has Christian Kirk on his roster, still put up 11 points, which I was pretty happy with considering, that score. So that 49ers defense, while good, that secondary is very, very susceptible. So if Baker's good to go, or if you have not really Chris Godwin, but if you have Mike Evans, not a bad play, because that 49ers defense is one that tends to scare people away on the surface, but when you actually do your research, they tend to struggle against the pass, against the run. I'm not playing any running back against that defense.
Yeah, so I think it's just, once again, it's like most similar things where just you get that garbage time, yardage and, possible points.
No, but Christian Kirk wasn't even garbage time. He was in some big-time throws in the second or third.
There's a few throws that he had throughout the game that's just he was able to get open and get some, good yardage for sure. So, yeah, I think you could get some good yardage against this defense, but overall, it's if they're on point, then it's you're not going to get a ton of points. So you may not get touchdowns, but yeah, 100% most of these fantasy leagues are in PPR format, so you should get those receptions and then the receiving yards. So you should have a pretty decent day, depending on the player that you're playing at the receiver position against the Niners defense. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out there. So those are the injuries, not as many as we usually get through in a given week. So yeah, it's actually kind of, on the lower front there, and they don't seem to be too serious either. So some of these guys that we brought up, they should be able to be good to go for week 11, but we'll see exactly how it plays out. Some of those guys are on a bye week, like we talked about with Derek Carr, so he should be good to go by the following week after the bye week. So, yeah, let's get into our picks here, Tad, in week 11. So we're not going to get to all of our picks here. I'm not going to bring up a quarterback because I think at this point, Tad, we mentioned the 4 teams that are on a bye week, right? We talked about the Colts, we talked about the Patriots, talked about the Falcons, and we talked about the 4th team that I'm blanking here, the Saints. Sorry, it's just the Saints. So if you're starting any of those quarterbacks and you need to find a replacement for them, I feel like you're kind of already out of the running for fantasy playoffs. There's something else is more wrong with your roster compared to the quarterback position. So I don't even have a quarterback that I want to bring up this week. Also, if you look at all the teams that are playing this week, I think if you have one of those quarterbacks, you're fine. You're obviously not looking for a starting option. So that's why I don't have a quarterback here. So Tad, I'm just going to pass it to you here. Just very similar like we did last week. We're just give me your 3 favorite additions for the week 11 waiver wire. I know you already brought up Ty Chandler, but bring up any more that you have this week.
Yeah, you suck. We cannot do a fantasy football episode about who to pick up and not do a single quarterback. We got to.
Okay.
People are going to need a quarterback. People are going to need a quarterback. So much like what happened in the last game this guy played in, you punted it right towards me. You're it's your problem now. And I was thank you. Thank you so much for that. As I was doing so you have forced me in this position, but I swear to God, if I were in a position where I'm forced to pick up a quarterback, this is the guy I would pick up. Luckily, Patrick Mahomes is back from his bye week, so I don't have to. But I know people are going to roll their eyes. I know they're going to call me crazy. You probably are too. I say ride with Jordan Love for one more week. I'm telling you.
I don't know about that one.
Hold on. Let me explain myself. So Jordan Love is currently rostered in 45% of leagues. And look, I am not saying he's a real sleeper. This is a real good pick. It's a dangerous game. But let's play it. Let's just play it for fun. It's damn it. What was Matthew Broderick's name in War Games?
I don't remember his name.
It's probably too old of a reference anyway. So anyway, do you want to play a game? Let's play a game. He put up a respectable 16 points against the Steelers, which, by the way, the Steelers are the 12th ranked fantasy defense in the league right now. So that's no small feat, especially given how this offense has been performing the past couple of weeks. So I was pretty surprised by that. I feel like a lot of people were. And another thing I was also surprised by, he's a top 15 fantasy quarterback this year. Which, okay, I see that's the exact reaction I knew for our podcast listeners. He's doing like the George Clooney like head tilt,
the head bob here, just like, yeah, okay. I think his numbers are skewed from his hot start to the season.
It's not though. It's not. Let me talk about that. Let me talk about that because that's what I thought too.
All right.
Is because all right. Let me tell you, Danny Ocean. So it was. I was totally expecting that as well. Of like, oh yeah, he had like 2 or 3 25-point performances, and he did, but. Guess how many times, over under, guess how many times, one, he scored less than 10 points. We're setting the over under at 1.
Well, I guess in this case, I'm guessing 0 times. So under.
God, I got you again. It's exactly 1.
Of course. Well, that's not fair.
But isn't that crazy? He's only scored under 10 points once all season with all the, and I'm going to sound like freaking Trump here, but with all the media criticism surrounding him, you'd think he's having like an all-time bad fantasy season. He's not. He's not having a great one. I'm not going to say that, but he's pretty much surprisingly consistently finishing around the 13, 14 point mark. So like if you are truly desperate for a streamer, I think he's actually not a terrible guy to ride with one more week. I'm not saying the rest of the season. I'm not saying a bench and stash. I'm saying ride with him for one more week because who does he play next week? Do you know?
I don't.
The Green Bay Packers play the Los Angeles Chargers. And I picked up Jared Goff this past weekend with his performance, 23 points, by the way. The Chargers have allowed every quarterback they face to go for over 20 points. Not 20 points or over 20 points, except, before people start yelling at me, except for 3 guys. You ready for these 3 guys? It was Aiden O'Connell, Zach Wilson, and Tyson Bagent. Those are the only 3 quarterbacks they've held. I don't know why I'm holding up 4 fingers. Those are the only 3 quarterbacks they've held to less than 20 points. Now, I think that Jordan Love is on the same level as those guys, but at the same time, I also think that the Packers offense is a little bit more talented than most of those offenses. So I actually like Jordan Love as a pretty solid streaming option. It's a risky play, but if you're desperate, I think that's the guy to roll with. Because like, as you were saying, that pool is pretty much dried up at this point. It's like tight ends and quarterbacks. Not a whole lot of good options out there. He's your best bad option.
Yeah, I understand it there, but just like it's hard for me to sort of justify that one where it's just, 13 to 14 at the quarterback position. I need more. I do at quarterback position. I know in a streaming option, it's sort of like a spot start that I can sort of understand that as long as I get double digits, that's saying something, but I'm needing at least like 15 for my quarterback.
That's fair, but that's what I'm saying is like he's in, keep in mind a lot of those games. I know he's not producing, but I do think the attention he's drawing is the reason why a lot of these guys like Jaden Reed are succeeding now is Christian Watson does demand a lot of defensive focus, and he was not there for most of the first part of the season. So now that he's there, I honestly gotta think that's why his production is dropping off because defenses are paying so much attention to him that all of a sudden Jaden Reed is open 30 yards down the field. That's why Jaden Reed goes off for 15, 16 points, whatever he did.
Fair. All right. Yeah. So it's not a bad spot start, but yeah, I guess just color me a little bit more pessimistic with Jordan Love here. So
I'll tell you that Chargers defense is bad, man.
It is. It's a very good matchup base start for sure. So yeah, it could pan out for sure. All right, Tad, what else is another pick that you like here?
So obviously I already mentioned Ty Chandler. He's my running back pick of the week. So I say run with him if you're available. If you're past the waiver 6 pick, probably not going to get him. So I would plan for a backup, but I'm telling you, I think he's going to slip surprisingly down a couple waiver wires. So if you're at 3, 4, or 5, go for it. See what happens. We're about 12 hours away, or no, not 12 hours. We're about 36 hours away from waiver wires hitting. So we'll see how that goes. This is the guy you killed me with in our DK DraftKings lineup is, you know what? I'm a believer. And it was funny because I was like, why would you start this, man? When I saw your lineup. And then my God, you're talking about a second half blow up. Noah Brown, I'm calling it. That dude's legit. So this is a very, I was mean with over under. I'll give you an underhand, fastball here. Noah Brown over the last 2 games has only been outperformed by one receiver in the entire NFL when it comes to receiving yards over the last 2 games. Who's the only receiver to outperform him?
Probably CeeDee Lamb.
Attaboy. It is CeeDee Lamb. So, and here's the crazy thing is he's only like 30, 40 yards behind CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
So, like, as much love as he's getting, which he should because he's been absolutely insane, if Noah Brown was doing this on, I don't know, the Giants or the Jets or the Niners or any like other big time, market team, he'd be getting just as much love as Lamb's getting. But he's doing just as well as Lamb is doing over the past couple of games. Now, I know what people are going to say. Nico Collins has been out the last 2 games, and that's fair. That's a totally fair counter. But I, honest to God, think, and no, I don't have any stats to back this up, but I have to back this up that sometimes guys play themselves into bigger roles in the offense. And I think that, D'Amico Ryans in this offense, and yes, I know he doesn't control the offense. I just can't remember. What's their offensive coordinator's name again? He was the 49ers. Well, whatever. So that guy, he comes from, if we're talking coaching trees like we were earlier with McVay, he comes from the Shanahan coaching tree. He's a smart offensive mind. And he clearly, because good Lord, does CJ Stroud look amazing. I really think that he understands, okay, this offense works better when Brown is actively involved. So I think that, yes, leading up to these 2 games, Brown had only had 154 yards on the season. Yeah. He sucked leading up until this hot streak. But I think this hot streak, while it may dip a bit, is still here to stay even when Nico Collins comes back. So I think that, again, he has played himself into a starting role. And on top of that, you look at, the next couple weeks, and this is not straight. Like it's really weird. They go easy game, hard game, which I love because that makes the Colts' chances of being weirdly competitive for the division crown better. But anyway, fantasy-wise, these are the next couple matchups they have in between some tougher ones. They play Arizona. They played Denver, and I know Denver, just a spoiler alert, by the way, buddy, Denver had a walk-off field goal. They beat the Bills.
Interesting.
How about that? But even then, Denver still sucks. So they play Arizona, Denver, and Tennessee. Those are some bad secondaries to play over the next couple of weeks and a very crucial time in your season. So I actually like Noah Brown as a very playable flex player. I don't think he's quite in wide receiver 2 territory, but as a flex option, it's a good speculative ad.
Yeah, I think the big thing there that you brought up already is just that Nico Collins' health. So I think that's the reason why Noah Brown has sort of been able to go off. I
think this was his last 20-point game.
I think 100% that's the case because we've also been seeing, and this is the point I was going to make too, is that we've also been seeing their tight end Dalton Schultz really get into the action too. But I think in this case, like you said, because of the performance that Noah Brown has been able to perform, for lack of a better word there, over the last 2 games, I think even once Nico Collins comes back, I think they may go more 3 wide receiver sets. So you may see some Brown, 100%. Some Tank Dell, as well as some Nico Collins. And also you have to understand that all 3 of those guys bring a different skill set to the receiver position. Like that's
the thing is Noah Brown is like, I'm the guy to stretch the field with.
Exactly. So I think they can all bring different skill sets to the offense. And I think Dalton Schultz, unfortunately, will take the hit there where it's like he may not got involved into the offense as much. I think he will be, but just not to the same extent that he's getting involved these past 2 games where Nico Collins has been out. So yeah, Noah Brown, 100%. I think I like him as a flex play for at least the next couple weeks at least until we see what exactly the offense is going to look like with Nico Collins. But I think all 3 of them, like I said, Dell, Brown, and Collins, they can all live harmoniously with CJ Stroud play the way that he's played.
Way back at the start of the season when I said John Mechie is going to be comeback player of the year, this is what I thought he was going to be doing.
That was the hope. That, yeah, what Noah Brown is doing right now is what John Mechie would have been able to do. But we'll see. There's still a little bit of hope that it could possibly happen. But I don't think this season.
Real quick, 10 seconds or less. Comeback player of the year. So DeMar Hamlin? Because I have a pick, but I want to see who you pick.
I think, yeah, unfortunately, that's the slam dunk pick still.
That's so dumb. He's played like 2 stats all season.
I know. But
normally I would agree with you. I'd call it at this point. I'd be like, fine, we'll give him, the participation award. But I think Josh Dobbs might get it.
If there's another player that I'm picking, Josh Dobbs is very much that guy.
That would be it. That would be the pick.
I don't know if you saw it, Ted. Just the NFL, they updated their Twitter header banner or whatever. It used to be pictures of Taylor Swift. It is now Josh Dobbs. And then their caption says, "In Dobbs we trust." So it's like, they're very much
let's go.
So I can see that happening. I still am very much leaning towards DeMar Hamlin, just the fact that he's able to play now. I mean, I know he's been inactive for a lot of their games, but that's the main thing there. But yeah, if there's a guy that I'm picking outside DeMar Hamlin, 100% it's Josh Dobbs right now.
Give it to 100%. Do it, you cowards.
All right, so we're going to get to some of my favorite ads this week. I'm going to start at the tight end position here, Tad. I know you already gave a quarterback, a receiver, and a running back.
So all right, spoiler alert, this was my go-to pick, and of course, Amir beat me to it.
Well, I think it's just sort of like one of these things where we talked about with the quarterback position, where it's like, it's a very thin pool at the waiver wire position for these two specific positions. But I think him blowing up the way that he did over this past weekend, especially with the return to Kyler Murray, I think this could spell good things for the rest of the season, especially if you have a hole at the tight end position that you need to plug. And that's Trey McBride, the former high draft pick out of Colorado State. And he's rostered in about 50.8% of ESPN leagues, and he's rostered in 59% of Yahoo leagues. So it's about 50% chance that he is available in your league. So, I mean, he's a good ad. So, I mean, Ted, he set a career high in receiving yards with 131 in Kyler Murray's first game back. I mean, that's sort of saying something that just like Kyler Murray's looking his way, looking like that safety valve option, just a guy that he could sort of trust. He is only behind receiver Michael Wilson as far as snaps played on offense among all skilled position players. He's also 2 weeks removed, Tad, from a performance against the Baltimore Ravens where he set career highs in receptions with 10 and career highs in targets with 14. So, I mean, it seems like with Zach Ertz out, we thought this was going to happen last year during his rookie year. It might have been 2 years ago. I can't remember. But during his rookie year, Zach Ertz got hurt, and we thought he was going to step up into that role to sort of, become that high-priced rookie that we all saw him during the draft process. It didn't happen. Maybe it just took him a little longer. Like, I mean, I talked about this with rookie tight ends before, where it's just like it takes them a little bit longer to adjust to the NFL speed of the game. Sam Laporte is an anomaly. Like, he's proving me completely wrong, but he is sort of the exception to the rule. Whereas, like, here now we're seeing Trey McBride succeed in his next couple of seasons here, and he's really looking like he's emerged as a very viable option in this passing offense. I do want to sort of throw a caveat in there that's very hit or miss, because between those performances between the Baltimore Ravens 2 weeks ago and the performance that he had over the weekend, sandwiched between that, he had a bit of a dud game, Tad. He only had 5 targets, 3 receptions, and 22 receiving yards in his game 2 weeks ago. So it's going to be very interesting to see which Trey McBride you're going to get, but especially with Kyler Murray's first game back, that sort of gives me a little bit more optimism that I think he can continue his positive, step forward and be a crucial part of this offense going forward. So, but yeah, I like Trey McBride as a good ad. If you need a tight end, tight end help specifically.
This might be my favorite ad of the week, past Ty Chandler, is because if you remember, we kind of saw this trend towards the end of last year as well. Because if I'm remembering correctly, Ertz got hurt in like week 10 or 11. Last year was pretty late in the season, and so McBride, kind of like you were saying, had a bit of a slow start. Because I remember that week that Ertz got hurt, you and I both were like McBride, yep. And then he had like 2 or 3 weeks where he had like 5 points, and we were like, this is why we hate tight ends. Because it's just like a possible call. And then as soon as we told you to jump off the ship, then slowly but steadily that his production started going up. And then, of course, the season ended. And we're just like, okay. But again, that was all without Kyler Murray because he was out at that point. So we just weren't really sure how this relationship would work between McBride and Murray. And yes, this may be a flash in the pan. No, I don't think this will be a consistent type of performance to expect out of McBride. But it's very clear that with this offensive line that is very young, very developmental still, that Kyler Murray, because that's the thing, is like, I was like, I wonder if he regrets coming back, because every time he was on red zone, that poor man was running for his life.
Very true. Very true.
Against Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's like, if it was against like, and I guess not anymore, but if it was against like, the old Washington defensive line, I'd be like, okay, understandable. That's a good defensive line. But like, Atlanta, really? You're going to make them look like they're the, purple people eaters? Like, come on. And so, like, God help Kyler Murray for the rest of the season. I hope he doesn't get hurt. But the bottom line being is I think that Kyler Murray, like you said, is going to need that safety valve, that quick out a lot in the upcoming weeks. So I see his target numbers staying steady. Will he produce with those? Not at the same level, but, production will come from that level of targets no matter what. So I actually really, really like him as a good pickup. I'm actually struggling because I have Dallas Goedert and David Njoku, who had a pretty good week. So if I did not have Njoku as my backup plan, McBride would be at the top of my list for tight ends to look for.
Yeah, it should be a high priority ad if you need help at the tight end position. Now, Tad, I'm going to get to the wide receiver position. We talked about Gerald Everett as sort of being a disappointment. I'm going to bring up a guy as sort of a sneaky addition here at the wide receiver position.
Attaboy.
Jalen Guyton, wide receiver
you
for the
son
Los
of a bitch.
Angeles Chargers.
You
Now,
traitor.
it's funny that you sort of get all excited because you thought, obviously, the name that I was going to bring up was Quentin Johnston, but
Better receiver.
you look at Guyton. He's been on this team since 2019, so he has familiarity with playing with Justin Herbert and playing under Brandon Staley for a handful of seasons now. He had 6 targets in that game against the Detroit Lions, which was second on the team behind Keenan Allen. He caught 4 of those targets for 41 receiving yards, and he also scored a touchdown in that game too. Guyton was elevated for the practice squad because I think obviously they needed the help. We already talked about Mike Williams being out. We already talked about Josh Palmer being out. We already talked about the tight ends not being a relevant piece of this offense, but Guyton seemed to step in and be a trusted piece for Justin Herbert in this passing offense. I mean, Ted, so many times on this podcast, we've talked about Quentin Johnston and just how he has this opportunity to take a stranglehold of a starting position with the Los Angeles Chargers, but just for some reason, whether it's the combination of Kellen Moore, whether it's the combination of him just still not adapting to the NFL offenses and adjusting to NFL defenses, just whatever it is, he has still not been able to be that sort of main guy that everyone was hoping he would be as being a rookie first-round pick for the Los Angeles Chargers. But here steps in Guyton, who, like I said, I think can be a dependable piece of this option for Justin Herbert going forward. It's a very risky pick because he's rostered only 0.2% of ESPN leagues and 0% of Yahoo leagues. So he is widely available, and I bet you off the waiver wires, there's not a lot of people that are going to be talking about this, picking up this guy or clamoring to get this guy either. But if he could sort of continue that trend of what he did against the Detroit Lions. Now, I will also throw in the fact that was a little bit of a barn burner, completely just back and forth trading scores type of game. So he had to involve everybody that was possible. So he may not be in the game plan every single week, but I like him, especially if he got a, flex option or you need a flex option for this week because he's playing the Green Bay Packers. And I know the Packers defense has been all right. You look at the numbers. They have, allowed over the past 4 games after their bye week, they've only allowed an average of 179 passing yards per game. Let me read off the quarterbacks that they played, though, Tad. They played Russell Wilson. They played Kirk Cousins. They played Brett Rippon in the Los Angeles Rams, and then they played Kenny Pickett last week. Now, of those 4 quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, probably the most legit of those options, he absolutely went off against the Packers defense. He threw for 274 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, you bring up a guy with caliber that is Justin Herbert. I think he could sort of put very similar numbers to what Kirk Cousins did. So I think this could be very much a good matchup for the Chargers passing offense to get some open holes and to really take advantage of this defense. And this is where Jalen Guyton can sort of slip in and be a very sneaky dark horse addition to your fantasy roster if you need that help at that flex position, especially like we talked about with some of the teams that are on a bye week this week where we got the Colts, the Falcons, the Patriots, the Saints. You have Kyle Pitts and or Jonnu Smith at the flex, possibly you're running a 2 tight end sort of thing. Drake London, Josh Downs, or the Colts, obviously, Michael Pittman. You got Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed. Any of those guys are obviously all going to be out this week. I think, Jalen Guyton could possibly be a sneaky addition. Now, obviously, I know you maybe want to talk a little bit about Quentin Johnston here, but just like I said, I'm leaning more towards Jalen Guyton over Johnston.
I think that's a good pick, as much as I hate to admit it, because here's what happened. So for those of you who didn't watch the game, I believe it was the 3rd quarter, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Keenan Allen went down with some type of
shoulder injury. Yes.
It was a shoulder injury because he fell on it. That's right. So was that the 3rd quarter?
So quick update on that. I'm pretty sure it was the 3rd quarter. He left the game. He went to the locker room. People thought it was more serious. He came back in the game, but as of today,
didn't
he did score the 2nd touchdown later in the game. He did. The coaching staff did say that he is day to day now, though. As of today, he should be perfectly fine. He should be able to grind through it because obviously they have nobody else, so that offense is really going to suffer if he does have to miss time. I think he should be just fine. But just wanted to update folks out there who do have Keenan Allen that he is listed officially as day to day. Possibility that he could miss the game, but it's not looking that way.
Yeah. So anyway, so when he went down, I thought I was happy, but I was like, finally, like Kellen Moore, because I half joke about this. And here's what really, all jokes aside, here's what I think is happening with the Quentin Johnston Chargers relationship is I think, I don't know why they drafted him. Because when they drafted him, I was like, okay, great. They're going to utilize him like he was utilized at TCU, kind of a stretch the field type of dude, kind of be like the next Mike Williams. But for some reason, they are using him like a speedster, which I don't know why you're doing that because he's not. And so, like, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking there, but they're not utilizing him properly. And so finally, I was like, finally, he is forced in the number 1 and number 2 position where he will be utilized properly. What happens that same drive where Keenan Allen gets hurt? It's a throw down the middle into the end zone. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be QJ and it's Guyton. It's like, oh, come on. I'm like, how many of these guys could they possibly have to replace Johnston than Johnston himself? Like, at a certain point, like you said, it literally has to be like just Johnston they can throw it to make it happen. I really did feel like that on the touchdown where Kellen Moore was like, I just fuck it. Let's just try it. And shocker, it worked. But point being is I think Guyton is a much scheme fit's not the right word, but his skill set, that's what I'm looking for. His skill set is a much better fit in this offense than Johnston's is. So I think that Guyton is good. I think that Johnston is a worthwhile bench pickup. It's an interesting stash and see. But Guyton, like you said, is an instant, like, especially if you're kind of desperate for it, is a very, very interesting kind of flex option to kind of plug in there and see, just because even if Keenan Allen is healthy, kind of what we're talking about with Noah Brown is maybe he played himself in to a bigger role on this offense, especially because, like I said, clearly Quentin Johnston's not filling that role right now. So they need somebody to step up, and Guyton could be that guy. So it is a very, very interesting ad there. Is he an immediate start? Depends on your situation, but it's like worst case scenario, a very interesting stash.
100% there. And Tad, the last thing that I want to bring up here as far as waiver wire additions is the defensive pick, especially a lot of people out there like to stream defenses. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. I mean, I know they sort of had a bad performance against the Los Angeles Chargers. It's just very much trading scores. So it's just a very high scoring day. I think they ended up with, 2 points, if I remember correctly. It might have been negative points, if I remember absolutely correctly. In one of my leagues, I had a rostered actually. Thought they'd do a little bit better. But yeah, I think they had negative points. But here's the big thing. They have a very good matchup against the Chicago Bears this week. Like the divisional matchup, they need to stack wins in the division. 100% the Chicago Bears. I'm not sure whether Justin Fields is going to play.
I'm about to say, you're not worried about the Fields return?
Even if he does play, though, this Detroit Lions defense is pretty strong. I think they'll be able to control this offense a little bit more. I think just that Chargers offense is a little bit more high-powered compared to the Chicago offense. Bears are currently averaging 15 points per game over the last 3 weeks. Bears have allowed the second most. They currently have the second most rushing yards in the league on offense, but they have the 9th fewest passing yards in the league. Lions are the only team so far that have allowed only one team, not even a player, but one team to rush for 100 yards on them. So if they can shut down the Bears and their rushing attack, they're going to force them to pass, whether it's Tyson Bagent, whether it's Justin Fields, whoever it is. If they're going to force them to pass, that's going to play to the strengths of the Detroit Lions. And I think that's where they're going to come ahead with some turnovers, for some sacks or whatever. And that's where they're going to get you some good fantasy points. So streaming option this week that I like as a pick them up and start, plug and play sort of thing, the Detroit Lions.
I got nothing on defense. If you're streaming a defense this week, I am sorry. This is a rough, pick from the field for you. But hey, maybe you can trade for someone.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. So, all right, Tad. So those are our picks here in week 11 for the waiver wire. We got through a couple of injuries here that happened over week 10. Some of them are more serious than others, but I think overall, all of them that we brought up, they don't seem to be that serious. I think we should be okay there on that front. But yeah, I mean, guys, there's probably a lot of players that you wanted us to touch on that we didn't get to because, we obviously highlighted the picks that we like, but maybe there's a guy that you're thinking about adding off the waiver wire. Maybe there's a guy that you're thinking about trading about, whatever it is. You see the ticker down below. You got our social media handles. You got us on Twitter. You got me at Under the Side 23. You got Tad at Tad the Side 94. Got the show handle at The Side Guys, and of course on Instagram at The Side Guys as well. Hit us up if you have one of those questions. Like if there's a guy that you want to pick up, there's a guy that you're thinking about as far as start and sit. If there's a guy that you're thinking about trading, or a couple guys that you want to trade for, interact with us on our social media handles. We're here to help you out. We're here to help you win your fantasy football leagues, finish you with number 1 in all your respective leagues, and win some championships. And Tad, I think most importantly, avoid those fantasy punishments. Because Tad, I think you're a little bit of a streak here. So you're sort of avoiding that punishment. But you definitely need to.
Where's some wood? Where's some wood? Don't you stop jinxing me.
So, I think just the biggest thing, that's what we want to make sure, too, is that, maybe if you don't win your league, you definitely want to avoid any sort of punishment. So make sure you're hitting us up. Another great way, make sure you subscribe to your podcast, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can listen right on the LAFB network as well. tons of options out there. Just hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with our podcast. Watching us on YouTube, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And I think for sure, make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Chargers and the Rams at the NFL level, and the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level. So giving you a lot of great content with all 4 LA-based sports football teams. So lots of great content with them. So support them with the reading and the following and interacting and all of that, because without them, there would be no us. But guys, to everybody who's already interacted with us, who's subscribed to the podcast, who's listening, who's watched the videos, who's, interacting with us on social media, I mean, just guys, anything and everything that you're doing to support us, we can't thank you enough.
And don't just support us. Remember to support our great partners at Underdog Fantasy. You can find them at underdogfantasy.com. Sign up using the promo code DESAI. Again, that is D as in David, E, S as in Sam, AI. So be sure to use that promo code DESAI to get a fantastic deal. Again, I can't believe that they gave us that deal. They're fantastic to work with. We really appreciate all their help. And you know what? We appreciate there's only one thing in the world we appreciate more than that. It's everybody's support, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting. And please, as we head into Thanksgiving, stay safe, everyone.